Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for those people who have their natal Jupiter in the sign of Pisces. This is the last sign of the zodiac. I actually went from Aries to Pisces. And Jupiter is a planet associated with luck. And I have been revising my definition of luck from something random to more like alignment with one's purpose in life, one's joys in life, and in other words, aligning meaning really believing that we are deserving of them and doing things that go in that direction to make them happen. So not being passive, but actually actively pursuing those things, and therefore the universe responding by, opening doors in that area of life. So if anybody, has had difficulty achieving a goal of theirs, but they haven't really taken action, they've just been wanting it to happen, wishing for it to happen, just by researching the topic or taking notes about certain things, making plans, I think that can go a long way in getting the ball rolling to attract that thing to you. And I say this, for myself as well. So Jupiter is also associated with growth, and I would say growth opportunities, expansion, we call it. But you know what? As I was perusing the astrocodex.com for this particular placement in Jupiter, I noticed that they always say growth or expansion when it comes to Jupiter, but they never say evolution. And to me, that's the ultimate growth. Because, Jupiter rules the ninth house, which is associated with traveling far and wide, long distances. And that is a form of expansion, geographical expansion. But if the person keeps the same consciousness, they're going to not be that expanded in terms of their personal evolution. They're just going to be moving their body to a faraway place. So this is why I'm kind of surprised that they don't use the word evolution. Maybe there's like a subtle difference between saying expansion and evolution. But anyway, Pisces is a mystical sign. I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. I think it's the most mystical sign. The 12th house that Pisces rules, and that its ruler, Neptune, rules, is a place without boundaries. It's the collective soul. So as the 11th house is the collective when it comes to beings in the physical dimension, in society, the 12th house is the spiritual version of that. And it's about past life. So karma. It's in the physical dimension, it's about suffering via hospitals and prisons, where I would call it, maybe I shouldn't say suffering, but it can involve suffering, and it can involve hospitals and prisons, which I would say almost a sense of atonement in the case of the prison system, but maybe in the hospital too, atonement for things that the person has done that has put him in the hospital, But also monasteries, places where people go to be alone, because this is a house of solitude. And if somebody has their sun in, well, let me put it this way. If you have your sun in the 12th house and you have Jupiter in Pisces, you might as well just sign up for becoming a guru or something, because it's going to be something like that. So the 12th house is about spiritual topics. And so Jupiter in Pisces is going to kind of like magnify that area of life for you. And so even though Jupiter is not a personal planet, I keep saying Jupiter isn't a personal planet. It doesn't have like an effect on your core personality traits. Then everything I read here, they're contradicting that. And I actually think in Vedic astrology, they give much more emphasis. They put much more emphasis on Jupiter. And I was reading this book. I don't know if it was, but it was all about Jupiter. And it was, the Jupiter in the signs. I actually wanted to check that out of the library to use for these videos, but it was already checked out. I don't know the name of it, but it was very extensive, and I think it was based on the Vedic version. And one of the things they said was Jupiter is such a big planet, it must have a big influence on people. So they kind of made sense to me. And so Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. And, it's interesting because in recent years it has kind of fallen by the wayside, but then they would say lesser ruler, which I like. I never heard that before when I was reading Codex. They said lesser ruler. And now, according to Codex, they're kind of, and they being like, I don't know, astrological experts, is saying that, yes, Jupiter is the co-ruler with Neptune of Pisces today, because it does share a lot of, Pisces and Sagittarius share a lot of similar attributes, and that really does make sense. So I'm glad to have that cleared up, because I never know quite what to say about the connection between Jupiter and Pisces. So basically, if you have this placement, there's going to be, you're going to be aligned if you are dealing with areas such as spirituality, but also caring for others in some capacity. And that idea of, being an empath is so strong, where you feel others suffering. Okay, and especially if your sun sign is in water, this is going to magnify that, because that will form a trine, or if your sun is in Pisces, a conjunction, and that will go along with maybe your purpose in life, or even like, for instance, if your north node is in a water sign. And also 12th house placements. And they say here too that if to look at what house your Pisces influences. So look at where Pisces falls in your chart. And that will indicate, you also look at where your Jupiter is in your chart. I would say that first and foremost, but also Pisces, because, sometimes a sign is split in more than one house. So it's not going to automatically be in just one house. And I'm talking about the unequal house system, obviously. So you get like greater depth of understanding when you see where your Jupiter is. So if your Jupiter, for instance, is in the 6th house, which is a house of work, or even the 10th house of career, you may be somebody who has a career in the helping, in some kind of field that involves assisting others, even like one-on-one. One thing that they mention in Codex, on Codex site here, that, the difference between Aquarian type of person versus the Piscean. And basically what they're saying is that the Aquarian is concerned with the collective, but it's not it's not personal. And the Pisces person, the Jupiter in Pisces, is going to really try to help each person directly, because water signs tune into each person's, makeup. They're not like just acting as if everybody is the same. And so you're a natural healer, obviously. And they're also talking about, in this case, artistic influences. So either you have these talents yourself, and definitely when you have a talent that is associated with Pisces, please do use it, because the world needs your good vibes, and they're coming from whatever it is that you naturally possess, when you're not trying to be something that you're not. Some people are really forcing themselves to do something that they may have the ability to do, but they just don't have that passion. It's such a joy to behold people who are aligned with their purpose and doing that and sharing it with others, because I feel like artists are sometimes the only ones, or very few, who are actually doing this, that a lot of other people are. And it's kind of ironic, because artists sometimes suffer trying to just stay afloat, financially. So it's so interesting, because the blessings that Jupiter provides here are not going to be of a material variety. Although I would say, I personally think that when you do embrace the gifts that you have and share them with others, that you are blessed in all areas. Now, I can't prove that, but it just seems like it would make sense. Because of Pisces being such an old soul sign and a water sign, the understanding of people's emotions is obviously going to be front and center. So careers that really bring this out are things like, obviously some kind of a counselor, like a psychologist, for instance. And I think that as a psychologist, this type of person is the best, because they, with a strong Pisces bent, because they're non-judgmental, but they're also very compassionate, and not all therapists are. Some therapists are very in their heads, and that might be good for a certain type of person, don't get me wrong. But there's a innate understanding of human nature with this that is not just theoretical, but actually kind of vibrational, if you will. And so also anything, I mean, obviously anything that is associated with the spiritual area of life, like, becoming a meditation or a yoga teacher, Reiki master, shamanic healing, and this kind of thing. It's funny, they mention here, I'll just read what they said. Of course, they can also develop all kinds of occult abilities and be occupied with predictions, astrology, tarot, and other arts that deal in the spiritual sphere. Needless to say, precaution is also needed in these hobbies, jobs, if Jupiter is not well aspected. And so another caution that they make for if Jupiter has afflictions, is they were talking about with the malefic planets, or I would say just the heavy hitters. I call them the heavy hitters, like Pluto or Mars or Saturn. Also, they have to be careful with any kind of substance abuse, because Jupiter is very indulgent, and Pisces is a natural escape artist, loves escaping into things. Now, more benign escapism is in movies and other art forms, but obviously substance abuse has to be brought up, and that's because of the Jupiter part of this. I mean, that's always going to be true for Pisces, but the Jupiter part just exacerbates it. As a matter of fact, I think that in the tarot, that the Nine of Cups is Jupiter in Pisces, and that is sometimes can be too much of a good thing. But there still is that very positive quality with it, because that's another point to make. Jupiter is in its domicile, in its home when it's in this placement. So it's going to be it's going to be, function very well. And one thing that I wanted to say too, that the Astro Codex mentioned at the very beginning, was that that this placement of having Jupiter, the planet that's in Pisces, can counter anything that is associated with Pisces in the way of low self, feelings of low self-worth, and being excessively shy and things like that. And I personally do not feel that Pisces is a shy sign, and one of the reasons why, well, observing Pisceans individually, but also the fact that Pisces is, is co-ruled by Jupiter, it will have that kind of jovial demeanor a lot of times. Yes, I do think that when they talk about the kind of sometimes more, what's the word? I don't want to say, it's definitely not cynical. Pisces isn't cynical, but could be pessimistic sometimes, out of a sense of worry, thinking that the worst is going to happen, that this could help boost that. But I don't see Pisces people as shy at all. And another reason why is because they tend to mimic the environment that they're in. And if they're with boisterous people, or if they grow up in a very loud family where everybody's very extroverted, I think they will tend to kind of imitate that or take that on. But it is a good point to end with here, and mention the tendency of somebody with a Pisces placement to absorb the energies of their environment. So it's very important for you to be mindful about the company that you keep, and that you don't associate with people who are very negative, who tend to be, I'm not talking about they're having a bad day, I'm talking about there is a pattern of negativity there, because that could easily lead you to feel very discouraged. And you are someone who is a healer, so you have the capacity to help others, but you're only as good as how much you feel it yourself, is basically what I'm getting at here. Okay, well, that's what I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you'd like a personal reading, the link to my website is below. I'm at rainandmoonastrology.com. Take care. Bye.